Good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. I'm King County Executive Dow Constantine. Heavy rainfall has caused moderate to severe flooding across King County. The Snoqualmie right here has gone to phase 4, which is the highest flood alert level. The Green and Tolt phase 3, the Cedar phase 2, as well as Issaquah Creek. Though the worst seems to have passed, the water is still coming down from the hills. So don't let the blue skies fool you. There's plenty more cause trouble here in these rivers. The National Weather Service has issued a flood watch for all of western Washington extending through this afternoon. A half foot or more of rain falling on the west slopes of these Cascades can bring significant risk of landslides, and that is also something about which to be concerned. But let me pause here and just remind everyone something we have to tell you every time there's a flood. Please do not try to drive your vehicle through the standing water. It can be deeper than it looks, carries a lot of force, and in nearly every flood situation we end up having to rescue folks who have foolishly thought they could make it through when others did not. Respect the signs, don't drive through the water. I encourage everyone as well to sign up for flood alerts. You can do that at kingcounty.gov/flood. Patrol crews are working round the clock to closely monitor river and stream conditions. They're dispatched to the levees to make sure that those are sound. You know that the levee system has evolved over the course of more than a century. While some of them are modern and secure, others need to be monitored on a regular basis. When we read updates on our cell phones or computers about the flooding, we don't always think about how that information is getting there, but we have crews who have been out here every single hour of the day, overnight, in the dark, in the rain and hail, monitoring these rivers, monitoring potentially dangerous conditions. I want to thank our employees for providing real-time information that enables us to make informed decisions. In addition to responding to potentially devastating floods, King County government, as well as the separate King County Flood Control District, worked throughout the year to reduce the risk to people and property. That includes shoring up riverbanks. It includes protecting roads and critical infrastructure. We've offered homeowners in flood-prone areas the ability to be bought out, for us to buy their homes from them, to move their families to safety. And we've helped farmers to protect their equipment and their supplies and their animals. We're going to continue to make every resource available to protect the people of King County, though it's getting harder to do with each passing season. The current flood season started 5 weeks ago on Halloween. Since then, we've had to open our flood warning center 4 times in 5 weeks. So, we've always experienced floods. That's kind of in the nature of rivers. But changing weather patterns are causing more frequent, more severe events, just like this. There's a cyclical La Nina, El Nino phenomenon, of course, but then there are long-term changes. That's why I've made confronting climate change a priority for my administration, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that contribute increasingly to weather patterns that are threatening our economy and our environment and the safety of our people. I'm joined, this is Clint Loper. Clint and I have come out in floods before to have a look and see what else we can be doing as a county to be prepared and to make people safe. He is the Snoqualmie Basin Supervisor at the Department of Natural Resources and Parks for King County. And he's the guy who's got the technical expertise and can provide more information. And we'd be glad to take your questions.
Dallas areas are you hearing that are sort of hardest hit right now? And how are you guys helping?
Yeah. So Clint has just checked in with Flood Warning Center. He can tell you a little more. That Snoqualmie has had the most severe flooding in this event. You know, the Green has a more developed system of levees, particularly in the Industrial Valley there. So it behaves a little less like a river historically would have. But we see the Snoqualmie jump its banks fairly early, and again, it went to flood stage 4, which is somewhat unusual, and I think you can weigh in a little bit more on that.
Well, I guess I'll say that there's road impacts in many parts of the county. That's one major type of impact. Executive Constantine talked about road closures and wanting to be safe from that. And indeed, right in this part of the valley, just across the river, both highways 203 and 202 are both closed. You can't get to Snoqualmie Falls from here safely or to Carnation. So that's an impact that we're really seeing, and there are many roads closed throughout the Snoqualmie. I'm sure there's probably some homes that are inundated in other parts of the basin as well. I haven't heard reports yet. One area that we have been monitoring closely is down on the White River, actually. There are at least 5 homes that have had some flooding in their living spaces down in the Pacific area. So that's something that we're really monitoring closely right now as well.
And I want to again reiterate, there are fewer homes that are in immediate danger now than there were a decade ago, because we've been going through methodically using public funds to buy out houses that were built where they shouldn't have been built and help people move their families to higher ground. So this reduces, in the long run, the cost to all of us in the public of responding to emergencies if people aren't putting themselves in harm's way.
Any idea right now, given all of the roads so far that are closed either with water or with the trees, any financial impact you have so far on repairs and things that need to be done?
Yeah, I'm going to let someone else answer that, but I will say that these flood events obviously really exacerbate our problems with road maintenance, with the undermining of the roads, and we're already so far below where we need to be in terms of the funds to maintain the vast road system we have in unincorporated King County. This is a challenge that we are bringing to our state legislators, and we met with them at 7:30 in the morning on Monday. And one of the main topics we brought up is, well, we've moved forward with the state roads package. Local roads have not been addressed, and particularly unincorporated county roads where there's a low tax base but a lot of miles that need to be paved are really behind schedule. And we've got to get some help, got to get some resources through the state to be able to catch up on that maintenance and repair.
So was that meeting promising?
It's I think that our delegation from King County, to one extent or another, really understands the challenge. We're in a different situation than other counties. We're getting a bit off track here, but we're in a different situation than other counties because most of our population is inside cities. We've really made sure the Growth Management Act's been followed. Therefore, most of the tax base is inside cities, but a lot of the roads are not. 1,500 miles of roads and well over 100 bridges out here in unincorporated King County, with not a lot of folks left out here to pay for them. So the dynamic doesn't work. We've got to get it fixed if we're going to be able to make repairs, the kind of damage we're going to see from this flood.
Well, I would just add that, as the executive mentioned, we've had a series of flood events in this past 6 weeks or so. And, after each flood event, we get out and do kind of a post-flood assessment, and King County Roads does that as well. And, we certainly don't have any numbers from this event, but I know from the flooding of November 17th and 18th, there's been some assessment going on, and there's even a kind of a case being made for a potential disaster declaration related to that flood event. And I don't think the decision's been made yet as to whether federal funding might be available. But I'm certain with this level of funding that we're going to want to get out and do the same type of post-flood assessment and, really take a good look. Once the rivers have receded, that's when you can really start to see the impacts and try to put some numbers on them.
Can you talk about what you're anticipating happening in the next 12 or so hours here in the Snoqualmie Valley and maybe elsewhere in the county? We're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a forecast, so we can't say with certainty. But I think actually the weather today is a little bit of an indication. It does seem like the major pulse of rain, the largest rain, the Weather Service is telling us that it has sort of moved through. And at this point, we believe that flows have peaked upstream of here on the Snoqualmie. They're still rising in this part of the valley. So it takes a long time. It takes on the order of 12 to 16 hours for that flood wave to move through this lower valley. So we're still going to see high flows all through the day today, but I think the forecast right now is for the flows on the Snoqualmie to peak downstream later this afternoon, like around 4 p.m. perhaps in Carnation. Again, just a forecast. Some of the other rivers that have flood control dams on them and are actually managed to try to regulate the flooding in that way, like the Green River, sometimes the high flows can be extended because there's a lot of water that's being stored behind that dam, and the release is a lot smaller than what it would have been had there not been a dam there, but it still can be significant and can create impacts and can damage particularly flood protection facilities like levees and revetments. On the Green River, we're expecting a protracted flow over the next several days of basically being at a phase 3 to 4 flooding, probably for several days now.
So the road closures we're seeing up here could last more into the evening or even tomorrow morning.
Certainly through the day today, I think we'll see much of them, and then a little bit hard to say after that whether some of that will change overnight tonight or not.
We have to have inspections.
Pardon me?
We need to do inspections.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely need to do inspections afterwards in terms of damages, and of course King County Roads and I'm sure WashDOT as well are always out here monitoring the situation, and I'm sure they're going to reopen roads when it's safe to do so, but they're going to err on the side of safety for sure.
How does this one rate in your experience?
Well, this is considered a phase 4 flood event, and anytime we get to phase 4, we call that major flooding. This flow tends to be, it looks like it's going to be about the same size as what we had actually a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, Executive Constantine mentioned that we've had a series of 4 consecutive flood events in the past 6 weeks, and indeed this one looks like about the same flows on the Snoqualmie as we had in mid-November. On the Green, I think they're going to be higher and more prolonged. And part of it is just because everything's so saturated at this point and reservoirs are more full. So I think the duration of the flood events is, you know, it's going to be longer this time, but the flows look like they're about the same. In terms of kind of looking, you know, back in history, we had big flooding this past January, last winter, that was a little bit larger than what we've got right now in the Snoqualmie. And then the largest flood event that we've ever measured here was back in January of 2009. So really in the past, you know, decade or so, we've seen a series of very sizable flood events.
Okay.
Any last words now for homeowners today who are dealing with this or in the path of flooding? What can they do?
First off, for farmers, there's technical assistance from the county to make sure that you can get your property, your supplies, your animals out of harm's way. Second, for homeowners, if you're in the floodplain, we're still working on buying out homeowners, and that is something that we can talk with you about. Third, make sure you sign up for flood alerts at kingcounty.gov/flood. And fourth, for heaven's sake, don't try to drive through standing water. We had to rescue somebody during the last flood, and you're not as tough and your car's not as tough as you think. So just let it be, go around, call for help. Thank you so much.